And welcome into Four Verticals Podcast, episode 156, here on this January 13th, 2026. Yes, I know we are late. Not our usual time here. If you're live on YouTube, if you're on Spotify, this doesn't matter. If you're on YouTube Live right now as of 9:31, yes, this is not our usual time. We usually go 7 hours before this. But unfortunately, we were, life happens sometimes, and we were not able to do the show like we usually do. But that's okay. That happens sometimes. But, oh, well, we're here and we're doing it. Of course, we're high top a chilly Jacksonville, Florida. Current temperature, I believe, is now in the 40s. It's going to be in the 20s, I believe, next week. How about that? Speaking of next week here, some housekeeping rules before we get into the main show. We'll have a normal show on Thursday. I'm pretty sure I'll have a normal show on Thursday. Usual time, hopefully. But so Monday's national championship game, of course, that's also Martin Luther King Day. We will have, sort of like last year, we'll have our show, as soon as that game's over, we'll have our show ready to go as usual. So that will take the place of the Tuesday show. So no show Tuesday. We'll have a show on Monday night, or on this time, I guess, or a little bit later. We'll have on YouTube, we'll have reaction, go over to talk about the game, and then that's it. But yeah, that's next week. Thursday should be a normal show, but Monday will be a special case there. No show on Tuesday. We'll have a show on Monday night after the national championship game, which will be talk about the playoff games here in just a second, the semifinals. But if you're new here to the show, we usually do this twice a week, talk most about college football. You have some thoughts, though, later on the Buccaneers offensive coordinator search. You got some thoughts on some of the names that are out there. But yeah, we talk about college football on this show, 247, 365. Twice a week. If you are new here, though, be sure to subscribe to the channel. Cannot emphasize it enough. Subscribe. Even if you are subscribed, if you're one of the 11 people who are out there subscribed on YouTube, be sure to check if you are. Make sure you are. Like the videos, like the streams when we do them. Be sure to comment as well down below in the comment section down here. I think somewhere over here on YouTube. But that's all we ask for. It keeps this show free of corporate interference. This show is independent media. We're not, we don't partner with any of these big corporate places, at least not yet. But yeah, this is independent media, no interference whatsoever. We kind of do as we do, and no interference whatsoever. So hopefully we can keep it that way. All right, let's get into the show here. It's getting late here. You have a bedtime, so we're not going to stay here very long. Semifinal reactions over the weekend. Starting on, well, not over the weekend, but you know what I mean. End of last week, end of last week, Miami gets past Ole Miss in a classic 31-27. Well, actually, check that. Is it 31-27? Yeah, 31-27. Classic game. Everything you were looking for in a college football semifinal, you got it in the Fiesta Bowl. Hats off to Miami, man. Again, I've said this last week on Thursday when we did the whole, retrospective, hey, what would it mean for all four of these teams here? I'll kind of repeat what I said on Thursday, but, of course, with the game happening, it's a little bit different talking about it. But like I said on Thursday, the last show we did, if Miami were to win this game, just think about how long they have come. Since losing to Middle Tennessee his first year, Mario Cristobal's first year, then the Georgia Tech fumble fiasco at the very end of the game, they ended up losing that game on the final play. Just imagine telling yourself in those moments a couple years ago that Miami would be playing a national championship just a couple years later. I guarantee you most of those folks in the college football media, fans alike, Miami fans even, will probably be like, that's not going to happen. How in the world is this team, this program, who's losing to Middle Tennessee and then losing to Georgia Tech on a inacceptable fumble late in the game, how can they play the national championship game a couple years later? It doesn't make any sense. Like that, I can see that happening. Well, it's happening now. They made it. Carson Beck was the difference in this game, in my opinion. Not even, I think, remotely close in terms of the offensive stuff. Now, of course, the wide receiver for Miami, whose name is escaping me at the moment, Malachi Tony. That's what I was thinking of, yeah. Malachi Tony, like, those two guys are the MVP of the team during the game last week. They were. I mean, Tony, he's a freshman, but a lot of the things he is doing, not to mention the impact he is making, and all these games he's been playing in, like this game, the Florida State game earlier in the year, the kid's be insane. And he has, 3 more years left in college before he goes to the pros. He was sensational. Carson Beck, also sensational. The final drive, he was surgical. And also, too, like, think about Carson Beck, too, man. Like, go from him last year at Georgia, struggling at times, right? You remember folks are penciling in and him to be like a first overall pick in the NFL draft. He struggles and goes to Miami, works with Shannon Dawson, those folks down there. And he's made them wonders for him. You know, it's been shaky this year. He had the SMU game, he had the game against Louisville. But take out those two games, and every single game he has played since then, he's been pretty good, man. He's been really, really good. And I think he is so far, at least on offense, him and Tony, the engine that makes this thing go. Like Mark Fletcher, too, the running back. You know, he's kind of fallen up over the years, but he kind of made a resurgence on Thursday. So there was that. I think he sort of kind of got what we thought we were going to get, a very classic game. But what was the difference here in this game was Ole Miss actually able to score some points here. I didn't think they were going to. I thought the difference in this game was going to be actually Miami's D-line and O-line. Now, they did fine. You know, there were opportunities that they had to get to Trinidad Chambliss, especially early in the game. But, you know, the second half, they struggled a little bit. Ole Miss got their groove going. They were able to score more points. So that was, you know, we got that wrong. But I felt like late in the game, yeah, the Miami defensive line, offensive line, or especially their D-line. The O-line did pretty well, but just the offensive line to me was, I don't know, like, not disappointing, but I thought they would have played to an extent where they would have disrupted Ole Miss a lot more. I didn't think it would be this high scoring of a game, but that is where we transition to give Trinidad Chambliss and Ole Miss a ton of credit here. Again, they went through a lot with the whole Lane Kiffin thing, him leaving, dealing with the coaching staff turnover. There are so many guys exiting and leaving and moving around positions, even up to before the last game. But I give him a ton of credit because I think a lot of folks, and, you know, Josh Pate talked about this on his reaction video Thursday night, that he thought that Ole Miss, at least after talking to a lot of coaching friends he has in the coaching world, they thought Ole Miss was going to be drained spiritually and emotionally after that Georgia game. And I don't blame him if that was the case. I kind of thought the same way too. I thought Ole Miss had kind of used up so much of the, you know, emotions coming off of the whole Lane Kiffin stuff, and they kind of, I don't know, like spread it all over the Georgia game. I just thought they ran out of it, or they were going to run out of it, and they kind of did. I mean, I think Trinidad Chambliss, now, we said before the game that he had to have sort of like a, you know, Justin Fields circa 2020 college ball semifinal game against against Clemson to win this game. We kind of got that, but there were a lot of points in this game where he didn't necessarily have, you know, his A game, if you will. I mean, he, you know, had a couple of interceptions that could have been interceptions, just a lot of missed opportunities, at least I think, that could have been there for them. Didn't happen. I think another thing, too, for Ole Miss that's going to get forgotten here is Kyron Lacey, who had that huge run, I believe, 77 yards on that one play they had. Of course, he gets hurt on that same play. He goes out. Makes you wonder if he was something in my eye. You know, if he doesn't get hurt and he stays healthy throughout the entire game, what does the game look like? We'll never know. That's why we have, you know, a college football video game for that to happen, I guess, to kind of see what would happen. But again, man, just a lot of moving pieces here from Miami too. Like they had the receivers, Marion went off, he had 100 yards. Malachi Tony went off. Both of them had touchdowns each. Just an incredible performance there from Miami receivers. But yeah, this was Carson Beck's game here, man. Again, I know he had the pick during the game, but besides that one mistake he made, flawless for the most part. Just he was surgical in that final drive too. And again, Mark Fletcher, at 133 yards, is going to get forgotten. I think that's kind of probably your MVP, or at least, I mean, there's so many players you can pick for an MVP for Miami, right? Carson Beck, Malachi Tony, Mark Fletcher, all those guys deserve their accolades for being the reasons why Miami won this game and why they were able to survive and now move on to their home stadium, no less, for the national championship. First time they were in that game since the year after I was born, which is a long time ago. That was, Maurice Clarett in Ohio State took it down that night. They're in the Fiesta Bowl of all places, and they kind of rectify some demons a little bit too. in the process. So hats off to Miami, Mario Cristobal, and the entire staff there. They're heading back home to play against Indiana in the national championship game. Again, imagine telling yourself that 10 years ago that Miami and Indiana would be playing each other in the national championship, let alone an expanded playoff. Just insanity that this is where college football is now. No, not to say this is the standard, but this is just where this season is. That's incredible to watch. And we'll be watching it on Monday night. Again, we will have reaction to the game live, sort of like this, immediately after on Monday night. Like I mentioned earlier, get some water real quick, and we'll move on to the other semifinal, the least exciting one. Again, if you're watching this live or on the replay or on Spotify, thank you so much for tuning in. No, it's a little bit, wonky with, time. You're doing the shows a bit later than usual, but we'll power for it. Won't be here too long. We'll try to go a little bit shorter than we usually are, but still there's a lot to talk about here. Even though this next game here is a bit of a blowout, but there's a lot to discuss. Like I've been saying, imagine telling yourself this 10 years ago. Indiana, 56, Oregon, 22. And the Peach Bowl there on Friday night, a couple of days ago. I know this is all old news now for both of these games, so I'll talk about them. We are witnessing history with Indiana, something we are witnessing in a historical event with them. Going to the national championship, doing what they've done, even going back to last year, Kirk Cincinnati. Just, I don't know if that's right. That's where I want to start. Is that just an historical moment in college football, what we're witnessing here? How just insane and just random. These going back to last year and now this year, how random this rise of Indiana football is. And looking back at it and just looking at Kirk Cincinnati, he was among us, right? He was among us. Even. And of course, we could talk about the game, but we will a little bit, but it wasn't much to really take into. Again, apologies for the TV in the background. I think it's college basketball in the background. So if you hear that in the background, that's what it is. But if you're yelling in the background, but yeah, I mean, he was among us, Kirk's name. He was, what's really interesting, I'll tell this story, I guess, back when Auburn was doing their coaching search, which led to Brian Harsin back in 2020. Had this Google Doc of names that I was kind of thinking, if I were Auburn's AD at the time, Alan Green, who would I hire? Josh Heupel was on that list, and Kirk Cincinnati was on that list. I am not kidding you. He was on that list. Now, granted, he was in the Will C category, I think, how I labeled it out. But I'm not lying to you. I'm not making this up. I had Kirk Cincinnati on that list only because did some research. I was looking at hey, who were the best G5 coaches at the time, or FCS coaches, I believe, actually at the time. And Kirk Cincinnati was on that list. He was at James Madison, JMU. How about that? A few years later, he takes the Indiana job, and they're going to the national championship. Crazy how that works. But yeah, just again, this is an historical one for college football because we've just never seen this happen before. A team with a very low blue chip ratio. Of course, blue chip ratio is not a 4- and 5-star guys on your roster. A non-blue chip ratio team has the potential to win the national championship. That is just incredible to think about. This game, though, again, Fernando Mendoza went off. The defense for Indiana. First play of the game, pick 6, touchdown. Very reminiscent, too, by the way, of that Peach Bowl with LSU and Oklahoma with Joe Burrow. Not saying this Indiana team is the same caliber of team. They're not. Okay, that LSU team was like a highly rated blue chip ratio team. This team is not that, okay? But in terms of the performance, even the score, too, very early, similar. Of course, we'll have more to talk about Indiana when they face Miami on Thursday. We'll do the preview for that game when we pick it. But it's hard not to go against Indiana right now, man. Just the way that team is playing, the spirit they have, the mentality they have, this, punch you in the face, run the ball mentality, 0 fucks given. It's incredible to watch. And by the way, the odds here, we'll repeat this on Thursday's show. For those who don't remember, but the odds here, according to FanDuel, not a sponsor of the show, just an asset we use. They have Indiana. I believe originally it was a 7.5 point spread. It's went up a point. It's now 8.5, which is insane. And by the way, there's a really interesting tidbit Josh P put out on this show and even on Twitter that if this game was played earlier in the year, Miami would have been a 6.5 point favorite. So it's a huge swing going from one direction to another one, totally flipping the spread, which is incredible. But as for Oregon here, we can talk all about, Indiana and their accolades and giving them flowers. And we are, right? With incredible performance there, both on all facets of the game. we probably saw Dante Moore play his final game for Oregon. I know a lot of Oregon fans are probably glad he's gone, which I don't know why. It's kind of one of those things where it's like, oh, we're retroactively shitting on the player who got us to the playoffs and played really well beside that one game. So, you're going to hear a lot of folks saying that. First, we'll talk about who the next quarterback could be for Oregon, but I think we did see Dante Moore play his final game in college. I think we did. Despite it being a bad performance, I am not. My opinion of him and this Oregon team in general has not changed. Though some folks will, put Dayton Lanning in the category of, well, he's in the James Franklin category. He won the 2 games he was supposed to in the playoff. No, he's, next year's the year to do it. Or he's getting fired. That's not going to happen. At least I don't think it will. But, given this past, a college football coaching cycle, I don't blame you for at least not necessarily putting that away, at least that possibility away. But I don't think so. I think Dan Lanning's safe. He's not going anywhere. Yes, I know this will sound like an excuse, but my fear, I had my fears about, Oregon's staff, especially on the offensive side of the football, being disjointed because Will Stein has taken he is now the full-time head coach of Kentucky. He was doing 2 jobs before that, before they lost. I think those are sort of validated. It sort of felt like Oregon's offense just didn't seem comfortable to me. Even during the Texas Tech game, they just never really seemed that comfortable. And it reared its ugly head. It just seemed like that you saw an offense that seemed uncomfortable and just seemed really disjointed, kind of a half-baked version of what you would expect from Oregon. And I think a lot of it is because Will Stein was doing 2 jobs, was working 2 jobs. And, imagine being in his shoes, working 2 jobs like that. But, it is what it is with Oregon. A great season. They got back after a year. They got knocked out in the third or the second round in the quarterfinals. So they themselves, in the process of this playoff run, rectified some demons, but they come up short big time in a blowout. Again, Indiana, man, Kirk Cignetti becoming maybe America's darling. Now, it'll be interesting to see years down the road if that's the case, right? But at the moment, that's America's team, Indiana. And they are big favorites against Miami, who I am sure will want nothing to spoil Indiana's fun and do it in their home field. More on that on Thursday with the preview there about Matt. But Indiana 56, Oregon 22. They move on to face Miami in the national championship game. Moving merrily along here. Again, we're not going to stay here too much longer here on live on YouTube. We'll probably done here in about 30. Not 30 minutes, but this show will be about 30 minutes long, so it won't be a very long show, at least I don't think. Hopefully we will, but I think Thursday show should be a lot longer. Transfer portal, some updates here to talk about. We'll probably do more of this on Thursday's show, but some moves to be made here. Texas, in addition to gaining Cam Coleman, they've also added in Hollywood Smothers, I believe. We may have talked about this on the Thursday show, but yeah, Hollywood Smothers, they've gotten. He was originally committed to Bama. He decided to flip, goes to Texas. Cam Coleman goes to Texas now. That's a huge domino taken off the board there. A elite right receiver, very talented. Again, he was in that same recruiting class of Ryan Williams and Jeremiah Smith. Kind of gets forgotten about because he was at Auburn with inconsistent quarterback play or just non-existent quarterback play, i.e. Jackson Arnold. Peyton Thorne experience there in Auburn. I know a lot of folks are, going to retroactively, and a lot of fan bases do this, where they go, Cam Coleman, good player or not, but, terrible teammate. Well, that is true for a lot of players or not true for a lot of players. I would just say some of the things you're hearing about Cam Coleman, I'm not saying he's a bad kid, but in terms of the leadership stuff, and it does matter in college football these days, particularly with the portal and choosing players who are really much so established players. I don't think Auburn, in particular, that staff there, were really shedding tears to see Cam Coleman going, look, it's bad to lose him in terms of the talent standpoint, but in terms of the leadership stuff, it probably was not the best. And, is what it is. He goes to Texas. Huge get for Sark and them. Interesting to see if that is an issue that creeps there in the Texas locker room. I don't think it will. I think Sark is well-versed, especially after being under Nick Saban, to deal with issues with guys with character flaws, then they should be fine. Again, adding him, Hollywood Smothers, Arch Manning. I'm telling you, before it happens, that don't be surprised come spring when the FanDuel odds come out, either spring or summer, that Texas is going to be the favorite to win the national championship next year and probably be the preseason #1 favorite. Sounds a lot like this year. So we'll see. LSU signing Sam Levitt. Finally, we know where he is going. He visited LSU. He was with Lane Kiffin at the LSU basketball game. Kind of strange. He leaves, goes to Tennessee, I believe, before that. Miami, Lane Kiffin, too, following him around, kind of like Looney Tunes-ish. But anyway, it all ends up he's going to LSU. Huge get for them. Needed a quarterback after the uncertain future. Of course, right last year, if Bryce Underwood going to Michigan, I think you knew that regardless if it was Brian Kelly or not, you're going to need a portal quarterback. And luckily, you bring in Lane Kiffin. Lane Kiffin has a history of doing well with transfer quarterbacks. He brings him in. And by the way, too, yet again, another Arizona State quarterback going to LSU. The last one, of course, was Jaden Daniels. He won the Heisman Trophy in about 2 years. I'm not saying it's going to happen with Sam Levitt, but you never know, right? College football is a weird sport. So Sam Levitt goes to LSU. Be interested to see who follows him. If there's any players who are still out there or have not entered the portal yet that could follow him. And then just to piggyback on that, of course, the next question is what happens with Miami and Tennessee, right? Tennessee, I think they should be fine, I guess. I mean, fine's a relative word, but I think they should be okay. So I trust Josh Heupel. And plus, again, you don't need like uber talented players to run that offense. But as for Miami, look, they were in the sweepstakes for him. They have not recruited high school well. So it'll be interesting to see, is there players who are not in the portal yet that could be in, i.e. CJ Bailey at NC State, which is a Miami native. Look, who knows there. Again, he kind of reaffirmed, CJ Bailey did, that he was going to stay at NC State. But, we've seen weirder things happen, right? It just so happens, too, that his star running back is in Austin, Texas now. So we'll see. That would just be a name that has not entered in the portal yet that I'll just be watching just in general. Not saying it's going to happen, but it's not a guarantee. But, who knows? Then finally here, Dylan Raiola going to Oregon. Now, I mentioned that I think Dante Moore probably played his final game at Oregon in an Oregon uniform. I think he's done. He's going to the NFL. I think his draft grade is good enough. Now, I know a lot of folks too were kind of shitting on him after that game, saying, "Oh, he can't go to the NFL now." Well, Trevor Lawrence had a bad game in his final semifinal game, and look how he's turned out, i.e. Justin Fields as well. Now, he, of course, didn't pan out as well in the NFL as Trevor Lawrence has. But, look, a lot of players have had terrible final games in college, and they've turned out to be well. Okay, so I'm not too concerned about, Dante Moore played like absolute crap against Indiana. Guys, he'll be fine, right? Same with Tua. Tua's final game in college, at least full game, wasn't that great against LSU. Yeah, he led a mini comeback, but, wasn't all that pretty. But Dylan Raiola, interesting thing here. So is it possible that Dylan Raiola could potentially be doing the Dante Moore playbook, right? You leave original school, go to Oregon, get a fresh start. Now, we've seen Oregon have success with transfer quarterbacks, right? Bo Nix, he was there for a couple years. They had Dylan Gabriel for, was it 1 year or 2 years? I think it was 1 year. Now you have Dante Moore for about a year. So you've had multiple transfers coming in. Now you have Raiola coming in. Obviously, the comparisons to Patrick Mahomes, and not only the way he looks, the way he plays. I think of him, well, I'm not concerned about his talent. The talent's clearly there, right? The talent's obviously there. The tangibles are there. The skill set, the body size and whatnot. His ability to, he is a quasi dual threat quarterback. So I'm not concerned about that. What I am concerned about is sort of his play style and the new offensive coordinator there, who I believe they're promoting from within. Now, the play style thing is one thing. The offensive coordinator promotion thing is another. So his play style, it is very reckless, right? It's very much so the gunslinger stuff, backfield creator type stuff. Very reckless of the football, has a tendency to turn the ball over a lot. Interesting to see with the style of offense that they're going to be running up there, which is kind of the same Will Stein stuff, but it's I forget the guy's name, but they're promoting from within. I would imagine that with the same system, you would, see a refined version of him, Dylan Raiola, not going too risky in terms of throwing the football all over the place. I think it'll be very refined. I think that's good for him to kind of, hone that in and not be, the whoopsie daisy king. I think that's good for him. Now, the worry is here, and this, coming from a Bucs fan who had experience of this, you lose your star coordinator, right? So Tampa, they lose Liam Cohn, goes to here in Jacksonville. Of course, they lose their playoff game this past weekend. It was still a great season. But the team he leaves, Tampa, my team I cheer for, their offense, not very good. Now, granted, it wasn't the problem this year necessarily, but it was a tick down. I wonder with Oregon losing Will Stein and promoting from within, is that a potential issue here? Could the offense take a step back and potentially worse than what it was under Will Stein, especially now with a new quarterback? I don't know. It's something to think about, but knowing Dan Lanning, well, now I don't know him personally, but knowing his ability to replace offensive coordinators multiple times and this one being in-house, I'm cautious about it again because we saw this as Tampa fans of Todd Bowles hiring, getting Dave Canales, he leaves. Liam Cohn, great season, he leaves. Bring in Josh Gazard, offense steps back, he has to fire him. The UFC. So look, we'll see here. I'm not. College is different than the NFL. In college, you can, the talent there is way different in terms of it not being spread out. You do have some advantages in college, though, with, certain personnel usually sticking around at the bigger school. So, I'm not concerned. I'm cautious about it, if you can't tell. But yeah, maybe a little bit of concern just after what I've been through as a Bucs fan. But yeah, Raiola to Oregon, interesting fit. Very interesting fit. Look, we'll see what happens here. Can they refine him, and can they sort of mold Raiola into something that he has not been yet? Right. Same thing. Dante Moore. Dante Moore, his first year at UCLA, terrible. It's gross. Comes into Oregon, sits behind Dylan Gabriel, has a fantastic year. Now, my expectation is I don't think Dante Moore is coming back. So this will not be a clear carbon copy of the Dante Moore experience. Him sitting for a year and then starting. So Raiola is going to have to start probably for them day one next year. So is it going to be a clear transition or not? We'll see. That's transfer portal too. There's a lot more of names too we can get to, but again, in lieu of keeping this show going above 30 minutes, we're not going to do that. So we'll touch more about that on Thursday's show. And I think Thursday, we'll start revisiting spicy predictions. I think we'll start doing that. I've been pushing it off, but we're going to do it. All right, Buccaneers offensive coordinator search update time. Multiple names have been interviewed for this job. Some of them more popular than others in Bucs fan land, I guess, or Tampa Bay fans land, or at least the Tampa Bay fans, I guess, the fan base is what I'm trying to say. But yeah, so a little caveat here, and we'll get into the name. So unlike in college football, the NFL, you must publicly announce who you've interviewed, whether it's coordinators or head coach. You have to say it publicly. So unlike college football, the NFL has to do it publicly, which I prefer. I would kind of like if the NFL model, at least for coaching searches, was applied to college football. It's where there's no guessing or wild rumors and speculation. It's more streamlined. That would be one change I would like to see come to college football from the NFL is, making your coaching interviews public here. Check my microphone, make sure it's still on. But these are the names here that we have at the moment that I've publicly interviewed with Tampa. First one here, Tom Mogan, former Ravens OC. Obviously, he will not be back because John Harbaugh has been fired. He has interviewed Mike Kafka, the Giants interim head coach, OC. He has interviewed Zach Robinson, the Falcons former OC, former quarterback, I believe, of Oklahoma State, with Mike Gundy. College football fans recognize that name. He is available. He has interviewed Israel Wolford, the Arizona Cardinals former passing game coordinator. He's interviewed David Shaw, former Stanford head coach. How about that? He has interviewed for this job. And then you have Brian Callahan, the former Titans head coach, son of Bill Callahan, who was the former Nebraska head coach a long time ago. So those are the names who have interviewed here. Now, out of all the names here, the one that is at least I would feel good about, the best available name is obviously Todd Monken, right? He has history of Baker. He has coached him before. He has history in Tampa when he was there for about a year or two under Dirk Koetter, who I thought was a dumb head coach. But at least when Monken was there, the offense looked a lot better. Like, they scored a lot of points. I go back to 2018, that 2-0 start when they were putting up 30-plus points. Very, very good offense there. That is the best name available. Now, granted, there's other bigger names out there that I've not interviewed yet, like Cliff Kingsbury or Mike McDaniel. Those would certainly be other good names as well. But Tom Munkin's just the big name so far they've interviewed that I At least I would imagine a lot more. That would get a lot more traction among the fan base. Like, at least it would be popular. The least popular one would be Brian Callahan. That would be a bad hire in my opinion. Nothing against the dude. I just that would be a bad hire because I've seen a lot of the Titans this past season when he was the coach and even after, and they were bad. Granted, the personnel was kind of iffy, but that was bad. Now, the most interesting name, just from interest's sake, is David Shaw. Of course, a lot of college football fans may recognize him. Head coach of Stanford for a long time, Jim Harbaugh disciple. I will just say this. Remember, again, Tampa, at least the thinking is here, whether Todd retires or gets fired next year, Tampa at least is hoping that whoever this coordinator is going to be, offensive coordinator, that they will be the head coach in waiting. Would David Shaw fit that model here? Because David Shaw, back 10 years ago, 10 plus years ago, he was in the fix to get NFL jobs. Of course, coming off of the Harbaugh coaching tree, he would get looks for head coaching jobs, and he is certainly in the mix here for Tampa's OC job. I don't know if he's going to get it, but if he does, I wouldn't be totally against Tampa hiring him as the full-time head coach if it works out, if he does a good job. But that's definitely the more interesting name on here, like Matt Kafka or Mike Kafka. Cool. Zach Robinson, okay. Israel Wolfork, I have no idea. Could be good. I know Shieldhouse, the Rams OC, would probably be the most reasonable name that I would choose, but it doesn't sound like he's in an interview with them, at least yet publicly. So that is a name to keep an eye on there for Tampa as well. Along with, of course, Mike McDaniel, Cliff Kingsbury, and others. But the Bucs OC search, I would imagine that this will not be filled quickly. I think this will be a long process. There's a lot more names to talk about. Again, I think the Glazers and Jason Light, Todd Bowles, they know. Well, yeah, I think they know that who they're going to interview will probably be their next head coach. Again, whether Todd's going to retire at the end of next year or he's going to get fired. Either way, you need someone you're going to have a new coach anyway in 2027. I would imagine the Glazers and Jason Light learning from the Lincoln mistake of letting him go and not, maybe this sounds weird, but pressuring Todd Bowles to maybe retire so it looks clean, and then promoting Liam Mann as your head coach. I would say hopefully they learn a lesson from that. Hopefully they do choose the right name here, at least a good enough name that will make the fan base comfortable to be the next head coach in 2027. I think Tom Moken would fit that mold. I think David Shaw would fit that mold. All these other names, I don't think so. Now, at least the names that are confirmed out there. Now, the names that are not on there that could get interviews, right? Mike McDaniel, Cliff Kingsbury, Nate Shieldhouse from the Rams. Those names would make me feel comfortable, I think. At least I would feel much better about them getting the job versus, like a Zach Robinson, Israel Wolfork, Brian Callahan. So those are some names there for the Tampa OC search that are publicly out there. I think there should be more that will come here in the next couple of days that will be made public. Just a matter of time, I think. Matter of time. How about that? Got the show under less than 40 minutes. So, again, very short show here. Again, we're doing this. It's on 10 o'clock now Eastern as we are live here. Again, normal show Thursday. And hopefully we'll have, a more traditional show. But, again, life happens sometimes. And we're not able to do it tonight. Or do it the show really like we usually do. But, hey, we're doing it now. So, again, we'll be back normally on Thursday. Make sure to subscribe to the channel. A lot of things are happening. Transfer portal kind of winding down, but still could be some. Again, with all these playoff teams, there could be more names to enter in the portal that we don't know about. So just keep an eye on that. So again, Thursday, National Championship preview. More portal news. Also some thoughts on Ty Simpson. That's something we could have talked about today, but in lieu of keeping the show a little bit shorter, we're not doing that. We'll touch on that Thursday. And we'll also revisit spicy predictions as well. We'll be doing that as well on Thursday. So until Thursday afternoon, more than likely, we'll do a show Thursday afternoon normal time. Until then, enjoy the rest of your Tuesday, Wednesday. Until the next show or until Thursday, take care, and we'll see you guys on the next stream.